Hey, Dave.
Hey, Chris.
What's happening, man?
Oh, it's good to get back together again.
It is. Working on our Gen X timeline again.
Yeah.
Episode 3? Or
This-
series? Or what do we call this? It's not episode 3. It's the third in a
This
series.
is the third in our timeline series.
All right. I like that.
So-
it's a little new.
We moved the mics around a little bit, try to get a little bit better sound, so
A little bit of an
you may see
adjustment.
me adjusting here and there. It's
I
better
think
that
we
I
can do
adjust
that.
the mic.
It's our show. We can do it.
That's right.
So, yeah.
So we're starting off with 1978.
We did. We ended, I think, with the death of Elvis
Yes,
in
in
1977.
Yep.
And our last episode, which was, it's not cool, but it was also cool because that was really one of the first pretty, real memories I had
Yeah.
as a kid. I've got flashes of a couple of other things.
Dude,
but
wait till we get into some of these.
I feel like from here on, it's game on for both of us.
I mean,
I
my
don't-
mind's just going to explode. So there may be fewer years on some of these as we're going to try to keep them in the 40-minute range. But,
I hope we make it to 1980.
oh, yeah, we'll make it to, we'll make it to 1980.
All right, good deal.
But
we'll make it.
I did go back and add a few things, but we'll talk about that when we get in.
Okay.
Let's jump into this. Let's
do
hit
it.
the intro.
All right.
Welcome, y'all.
Hey, Dave.
What's up, Chris?
Yeah. Good to be back for number 3 in this series.
Number 3 in this series. I think this is
Super stoked.
maybe number 11 overall.
It is. And we totally missed that in the last
we
episode,
missed
right?
celebrating episode 10. I did put something in with the editing to
Awesome.
celebrate episode 10, but we didn't even mention it. So episode
10
10.
deep. This thing is real now.
Oh, yeah.
Talked about for years. Now it's a
Yes.
reality. Your
Now.
dreams can come true as well.
That's right. If you just
Keep it.
put them off long enough and then finally
Eventually
decide
you
to do
get
it,
here.
And as you see, we are low budget. Low budget.
But this is now, the third episode in our new kind of our new
Yeah.
stage set
yeah,
up here.
I think this will kind of be,
in the,
because we did the first one, which was the test, and
We
then we
did.
moved over there and did several of them over there, and then all of our timeline series have been here. I think this will be kind of our mainstay
this
for
is
a
good.
while.
As soon as we get this bolted down, this is the
Look,
third
man.
episode with this tabletop is not mounted, and
It's
so
just sitting.
yeah.
the-
Every time before we record, I almost tip it
Yeah.
all over.
He
So,
sits down and kind of gets comfortable, and the whole front of this thing comes up. So,
I'm an elbow kind of guy.
Right.
When I eat, my arms are up here on the
oh,
table.
I
know some
like
people
to
think
do the
that's-
same thing, but I'm forcing myself not to because I know
Yeah.
because I made it.
And I pick apart every episode, right? I look at my body language
Yeah.
and my movement, and I just
And I was a little bit off center in some of the other videos, which bothers me.
yeah.
I think this is a little bit better centered because I can see the reflection of us in our.
It does. We have some.
full-length
Is
mirror.
this additional lighting?
No,
Have
this
you
is
been on
the same.
Temu again?
No, this is
Okay.
the same lighting.
All right.
It's the same Temu lighting.
Well, that's why you are here, is because you remember
Yeah, I remember
most
stuff.
of
Yeah,
these stories, and
I did
just
notice
Kind of agree.
there's kind of a shadow in a diamond shape around our banner here.
I do see that now.
I saw that in the video, and I was like, "That's by accident," but that's kind of cool.
Makes it look kind of high tech. How's our house
our science experiment?
project going here?
This one is
Oh.
they're now stuck to the bottom,
Mm.
so it's getting gooey. Oh,
Is it
here
Do
you
we-
got to examine that.
do we have?
It moved like real slow and then just dropped, and that was
Oh man,
kind of
that top one
right
really
at the top one.
looks.
Look, the white powdered donut story, it's much anticipated for me because I know what all goes on, and it's just it's an unbelievably unpleasant experience until we figured it out. But
the amount of time they're waiting to hear the story does not compare to the time it took to actually figure this out.
Right.
I mean, so they can be patient. It's coming. We'll get there.
And we might go into that. We might get to that story, and you'll just go, "That's it. That's all." But hey,
did I don't know
our
if
story.
Before we started recording,
They still look pretty good.
This probably should have been for the intro. But did you hear the lesson I got upstairs from your children before we came down?
Which one? About the shirts?
No, about being granddad.
No,
Apparently, I'm not granddad.
you're not granddad.
Because I don't have a cane and I'm not old enough. So,
Well, I mean,
I'm looking for a new name.
if we're going to be to be fair to our
I got schooled.
44 subscribers, we had a new subscriber yesterday.
Oh, welcome.
44. Thanks for coming.
Subscriber. Is that how we're going to refer to them? Subscriber number 44. Welcome.
Yes. But it's somebody that I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So it's just
All right. Maybe we'll talk about who that is later. Maybe I know them. I don't know.
I don't know.
Cool. Well, welcome.
Yeah. So to be fair to our subscribers, my children are about the age of your grandchildren.
That is correct. Yes. But that's okay.
Right. No, I mean, I have a son that's about to be 31,
Yeah,
but
we're spread out. But yes.
I spread them out. I started over.
I do have grandchildren about the same age as your kids. So
All right. Let's jump into
let's do this.
First year, 1978. I did go back and add some stuff because as we get in these late 70s,
I like surprises
through the 80s,
all right.
I had to add some of the just iconic album releases.
I think that's
I had a few, I had Thriller and I had some other stuff like that, but just the stuff that as I was going through this, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can hear, oh man, like, oh wow, I didn't realize that had that many songs on that album, that were just great, so.
You know them all. Now here's a question, and this could be for the group as a whole, but our generation, I really think that the decade that's coming up, the 80s, I really do think is the defining decade
This
for
is the
Gen X.
yes.
You agree?
The 1980s are the iconic decade for Gen X. That's
Okay.
because even if you were born at the very beginning, born in 65,
Mm-hmm.
You're 15 when you hit the 80s. So very impressionable, about to start driving,
Right.
all this kind of stuff. So you get to pick your own music. You don't have to just listen to whatever your parents are listening to.
And I think as we go through it, just a lot of, there's always change going on, right? But I think the 1980s, it was like fundamental, never before seen changes.
Right.
You get to the 90s and you start seing, okay, this is something that came out in the 80s, but now it's improved.
Yes. Or it's morphed into something else.
Right. And what comes to mind is like, video games. You go from Atari to, in the 90s, we're PlayStation. We start getting into, later in the 90s,
I got the
Xbox
Game Boy
and
in
stuff
here.
like that.
That's
Game
better.
Boy,
I tilted that back. Hope that sounds better.
Good.
Yeah.
I took my mic cover off earlier and I about scared myself because
It's kind of loud.
it goes really loud.
Yep.
But,
All right, here we go. 1978. February 10th of 78, Van Halen releases its first self-titled album. First album that was just self-titled Van Halen.
ooh,
So you talk
that's
about...
a good way to start.
Yeah, that's we're just starting off strong. So, and there's several, there's some more Van Halen stuff in here, and some of these bands will be mentioned more than once. Doesn't mean I have any more affinity towards those or not, just stuff that you just heard all the time.
Friendly to everybody.
Yeah. March 3rd, the New York Post prints an article which speculates about the possibility of cloning a human being. Now, this is in 1978.
That's a little earlier than what I would
I would
have
not
thought.
Right.
And that's been some of my favorite parts so far. Has been I'm like, I didn't think that came along until later.
Right.
But like cloning in 78. That is.
And so the New York Post
Interesting.
prints an article about speculating cloning a human being in 78. It's crazy. April 7th, Prince releases his first album titled For You.
Wow.
So you got two huge music. I hate to keep using the word icon. I know I've said it about 6 times already.
And we're not even done yet with 1978.
No, we just started.
I mean, wow.
So Prince comes on the scene in 78. April 18th, the U.S. Senate votes to return control of the Panama Canal to Panama on December 31st, 1999.
Do you think in 1978, 1999 felt like forever?
Oh, yeah, because I remember hearing that. I remember hearing that we were turning it back over because I was in first grade.
I was going to say, I was in kindergarten.
I was in first grade.
1978.
And I
was in
remember hearing my parents talk about it, and they said, yeah, we're giving control of the Panama Canal back to Panama because we're in charge of it now. We're giving it back to Panama in 1999. I was like anybody will still be alive then. Because
We'll stop by and see it in our flying car.
right, 99 was just, the V8 will be outlawed and the flying car, everybody, all this kind of stuff that we were told. Yep. And June 6th, the Cars released their first album, which is also self-titled. Now I'm a big Cars fan, so I did have to throw that in there. September 17th, Camp David peace agreement, which was a big deal, signed by Israel and Egypt. Camp David, after 12 days of secret peace talks, Henry Kissinger sat in on that, and Jimmy Carter was instrumental in bringing that about. Peace between Israel and Egypt. The Camp David Accords, September of that year. And rounding out the year, October 16th, in Vatican City, John Paul II is elected Pope.
Yeah, right. And that is the growing up Catholic as a child.
Right.
That was kind of
that was
the Pope I
right.
That's the only Pope I knew.
Right. All right, 79 is over to you.
1979. It's the end of a decade coming up here. March 28th, the 3 Mile Island in Middletown, Pennsylvania nuclear accident. Partial core meltdown, worst nuke accident in the world to date. I do remember that.
I remember that too.
And I actually did, in many years later, my senior paper in 12th grade English was on 3 Mile Island.
Wow.
So
mine was on the similarities between the Lincoln and Kennedy assassination.
I feel like I remember talking about that.
Oh yeah,
too,
that's wild.
It's So the 3 Mile Island accident. I'm sure the other one will be in here.
Oh, the other one's in there
later. That
and
becomes.
I remember one of the guys that we talked about before, Lane. He had a T-shirt that said, "I survived," and I tried to find it. I tried to find a picture of it. It said, and I don't know why I remember this, I just remember things, but it said, "I survived the nuke flukes at 3 Mile Island, or at 3 Mile Isle, by keeping my radio active." And it had a picture of a boombox on there with a nuclear. Yeah,
that would be a cool shirt.
And he cut the sleeves of it off. And I tried to find, I Googled parts of that. I Googled the whole thing and nothing.
Well, there you go. There's a money-making idea for somebody.
There you go.
Wow, okay. A little bit out of... I just want to make sure I'm getting the time right because it kind of bounced.
There wasn't a whole lot in 79.
I was going to say, not a whole lot. August 10th, Michael Jackson released...
Wait, you skipped September 1st.
Because September comes after August.
Oh, my gosh. See? I did that.
And I was not even going to mention it because I could have said,
My bad. I did that. I even printed this.
Here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, can I continue now?
Yes.
All right,
sorry.
thank you. August 10th, Michael Jackson released his album, his first album on Epic Records after leaving Motown, titled Off the Wall. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You. Both were on that album.
Which was a big deal because he left Motown. Michael Jackson left Motown.
I mean, Michael Jackson was a huge deal in the 80s, man. I mean, all the other stuff that comes later, that's one thing. But in the 80s, I mean, dude, he had his time. So
yep.
September 1st, American Pioneer 11 passes Saturn and gives us the first up-close pics of the planet. Space race followed, right into just
Space
exploration.
Yeah.
Has just continued to be something that I think we've grown up with quite a bit over our generation.
And seeing those pictures of Saturn, I'll put one of the American Pioneer picture. Of course, we have better pictures now, but
Did you see the moon landing this week of the private company? I don't know the name, and probably don't need to drop it on here anyway. But have you seen that?
No, I didn't.
So, I guess a private company sent a moon rover, moon lander, whatever it is. Not people,
Right.
but they actually sent a ship that landed on the moon this week, and the photos I've seen are phenomenal.
Tell me that you have money to burn without telling me you have money to burn.
Right. But I think if we go back an episode, we can officially say now, I'm pretty dang sure we've been to the moon now.
Oh, yeah, now.
As of last week,
We have now.
confirmed. Now, people, all right, we could still
The
leave that
last
open
few
a
weeks
little
by the
bit.
time this
So,
airs.
I did meet someone that had not listened to the podcast that felt the same way that I did. That I think we've been to the moon, but maybe they had to do that video
Just in case.
just for keep the spirits up in case
Right.
it didn't work out. But
Right.
November 1st of 1979, the federal government bailout of automaker Chrysler is announced. Bailout of $1.5 billion.
In 1979, that's an insane
It's
amount.
a huge amount of money, but I don't know if I ever really knew that happened. I know there was auto bailouts in later years with
Right.
other administrations and
in the
things
late
like that,
2000s.
but I felt like it was shocking because this is unheard
Right.
of. But apparently,
But
it's
I
been
think
heard
this
of.
is when, and I don't know if I put it in here, but I think this is when, after this bailout, they brought Lee Iacocca in,
Oh, okay.
and he kind of
We all
revamped.
kind of him,
Yeah.
Interesting. What else did he did something else significant? Was he
He was with Ford for a while.
right? But he did something outside of the automotive industry.
He wrote a book.
Was he? I want to say, was he responsible for leading the efforts to restore the Statue of Liberty, maybe, or something like that?
I do not know. If you know, let us know.
I love how we create more questions than probably what we answer here. But
Well, we
that's
need
it's all
something for the
part
book of
it.
answers.
There we go. November 4th, the Iran hostage crisis. I also remember this.
Yes.
63 Americans taken hostage when the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran was overtaken. I remember that. I also remember the rescue attempt that went really
South.
terrible.
Yeah.
Too. And so I don't know if that makes its
That's
way
coming up
here
in
eventually.
1980.
All right, sorry, didn't mean to steal the thunder there, but yeah, that kind of that wraps up that decade on kind of a downer note. That
Right.
kind of sucks, but I'll pick it back up a little bit before you take over in 1980. I do specifically remember New Year's Eve, 1979, watching Dick Clark announce 1980 and
Yeah.
just how excited that dude was.
Right.
Of it is a new decade, like it had never happened before. And I'm
Right.
like, dude, you've already done what, 40 of these? but I admire his excitement, and it made me feel like as a kid, like, wow, this
I
is
wonder
a
if
new
just
era.
people just kind of felt that something different was coming, because the 80s were, I mean, every decade is different, has its own calling card and characteristics, but something about the 1980s was just, I don't know. I can't really describe it to people, because I've had kids ask me, they're like, I wish I grew up in that, because I teach high school. Kids are, man, if they listen to 80s music, they're like, I wish I grew up in the 80s. What was it like? I'm like, dude, I can't even tell you. I mean, it's just, I can't even tell you.
It was quite popular when we were growing up in the 80s
Oh, yeah,
to go, man, I wish I grew up in the 60s. That
Yeah.
would have been so cool.
Yeah.
Just to,
But then we got a little older and like, yeah, I'll take the 80s.
well, tell us about this new decade,
All right.
1980.
In 1980, starting off January 4th, right at the beginning, Carter announces an embargo on the sale of grain and technology to the USSR. So if you remember, Nixon had started selling wheat to the
Right.
USSR. January 4th, 1980, Carter said, "No, we're not doing that anymore." So no grain and no technology to the USSR due to the Soviet invasion of, you ready for it? Afghanistan.
Wow.
That'll come into play not on our timeline, but later in our lifetime.
But isn't it amazing how There's been some themes already.
Yeah.
You know, with countries, with, you know, agendas and things
Yeah.
like that. I mean, you know, we've already seen.
This stuff is not new,
You know,
y'all.
yeah.
Okay? The seeds for some of these things were planted long ago.
I feel like the well, we didn't start the fire. The Billy Joel song.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's been recently redone. Have you heard the new version?
I have not heard.
I feel, yeah, it's been. I think it's got like a millennial twist on it now, which was kind of cool. I heard it recently, but yeah, I mean, I feel like the world has always been on the edge.
Right.
I feel like if you look at most of this, it's like, I mean, there's some really great things in here, but there's
some
always those
real
little
teetering
seeds
on
of
the
like,
edge
it's like,
of
wow.
this could go south real fast.
And I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
When we get into, I mean, really the height of the Cold War and stuff like that. But yeah.
February 13th, I remember this. Opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. Yeah, and you know what's coming.
I was going to say, we all remember something from that.
If you were
event.
alive and and old enough to remember anything, you probably remember this next thing. Because I sure do. I was watching it.
I watched it too.
And my dad jumped up out of the chair, and I was like, you know, I hadn't seen him cheer like that
Yeah.
for a sporting event. You know, he might be like, come on, you know, something like that. But to watch him stand up and be like, yeah, I was
That's
like,
awesome.
this is something I need to remember. February 22nd, the Miracle on Ice. The U.S. hockey team, which was composed of amateur college players, defeated the 4-time gold medal winning all-pro player Soviet professional hockey team,
Dude,
USSR
If you
hockey
did
team.
not own an American flag by that day, you probably went out and bought 10. that was
and the thing
amazing
is, that
to
wasn't
watch.
even the gold medal match.
Right. Yeah.
That was the semifinals. But it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Now we went on to win gold.
That was I mean, I remember it very much like that too. It was out of the ordinary type of enthusiasm and cheering.
Yes.
And again, we both grew up in Tennessee. Nobody watched hockey.
Nobody watched
We didn't
hockey.
have a hockey team yet.
No,
I mean,
not yet.
I don't even know if we had a place to go ice skating.
I didn't even.
Maybe downtown
Yes,
Centennial
yeah.
Park. Is that where that
Yeah,
was?
it's like Centennial Sportsplex now.
Yeah.
But there's some. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a place at Centennial Park.
It was
in
still a
Nashville.
weird thing to be doing in Tennessee.
Yes,
in
and I didn't know the
1980.
rules. I just knowed. I just knowed.
You just know.
Yeah, I just knowed. I just knowed he'd gone off to Rito. That's sorry. It's a line from my favorite movie. I just knew scoring a goal.
Yeah.
Offsides, what are you talking about? You know, but that was, I mean, again, to see the reaction of my dad,
Mm-hmm. You just knew it was a big deal.
I just knew it was a big deal.
I
was
didn't
like-
understand it.
I didn't. I was like, okay, so we won, and we don't
Yeah.
like the Russians. You
Yeah.
know,
They're bad.
they're bad. We're the good guys. They're the bad guys, and that's what we knew.
Mhm.
But as I got older, I was like, oh, college players against a 4-time gold medal winning professional team—that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that was fun. Skip down to April 12th. The United States Olympic Committee decides to boycott the Summer Olympics in Moscow. So we had just whooped them in Lake Placid and then said, I'm going to sit this one
We're
out.
not going to go there.
Boycott the Olympics in Moscow due to continued occupation of Afghanistan.
I remember that too.
I remember the boycott, yeah, because the Summer Games. And the Soviet Union, of course, cleaned house in gold medals and
I'm
stuff like
sure.
that because, you know, because they never cheat.
The only thing that I really thought of with that was
Sochi.
was wow. All those people have to wait 4 years before they can play games again.
Right.
And,
That's,
you know, it was
that's what I was
that's
thinking
all it
because I
really
was like,
came to.
well, they just played 4 years ago. Now they got to wait another
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, I had no idea that they actually
Competed during.
competed
yeah.
in between. I thought
Yeah.
they just got together for 4
Like,
years
oh,
and
I've been training
it's
all
like,
this
man, those
time.
people are amazing.
Right. Right. All right. And then April 24th and 25th, this is what you alluded to earlier. There was a failed attempt to rescue the hostages in Iran, codenamed Operation Eagle Claw. And it left 8 Americans dead and 5 wounded. So I remember that pretty vividly, that we had to say, hey, we tried to rescue him and it didn't quite work. And I think that also led to some, if this is the story that relates to this, there was some revamping of our special operators and, our special forces and things like that.
I think from documentaries I've seen, I think that's true.
This was kind of hey, we shouldn't have failed at this. We got to do things different. And that led to, kind of what we have now, the tip of the spear.
Yep.
May 18th. Oh, I remember this one too.
I do.
The eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington State. It was said to have 500 times the power of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima or Hiroshima.
Have you've seen that? It's on video.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And it's like
just the whole side.
You're looking at the mountain, and then the mountain is not there.
And then just there's this violent shake, and you don't see anything, and the side of the mountain is gone.
It's ridiculous.
It dropped ash in Maine.
I remember that was probably one of the first things I was actually kind of scared of.
Yeah.
Because you heard all this stuff about, the cloud cover and,
right.
I don't know if we'll get into acid rain. I thought that was going to be a much bigger deal by now too, but
right.
we were terrified of all the stuff that was going to fall from the sky.
Right.
But here's an interesting fact. I take that back. All right. I'm not going to spew stuff. I'm not an archaeologist, geologist. I'm not even a scientist at all.
Okay.
Just put that out there.
Fair.
But I have seen a documentary on Mount St. Helens and how you can look at other areas of the world, for instance, the Grand Canyon, which we have been told our whole lives took millions of years to create.
Right.
Right. And what's interesting is scientists are finding the same type of geographical land changes. I don't even know. Is that the right word? Sometimes I need to do a little bit of research before I start talking. Anyway, the land, what they have seen after Mount St. Helens, after the eruption, which happened in a matter of moments, they're seeing the same type of structure in the earth that looks like something that they've been saying takes millions of years to do. So now they're questioning the whole thing, like how old is the actual earth, things like that. Which is always, I'm fascinated by all that. I love hearing how science and the Bible can be brought together. That just amazes me, all aspects of it. I love talking about it. Doesn't mean I know a lot about it. I just love talking about it.
Maybe that could be a future topic.
We could possibly. I'm fascinated, and I love to hear people either try to put them together or take them apart.
That might sit in on us.
That'd be phenomenal.
Can't pay them.
Well,
but,
it's all volunteer.
But
this is anyway.
Still looking for.
I do remember that. So that was a big deal. That was huge and crazy. 500 times the power of an atomic bomb.
Right, of the one dropped on Hiroshima.
I mean,
crazy. All right, July 25th. You'll like this one. AC/DC releases Back in Black.
Nice. That is a good album.
I mean. I can hear it. I can see the album cover.
And none of the musical acts that you've talked about so far have not held up.
Right.
I mean, they all, I can hear this music now, and I'm into it. I'm like, yes, that's a good song.
Oh, good song. Turn it on,
Yep.
And then to round out the first year of the new decade, November 4th, Ronald Reagan defeats Jimmy Carter in presidential election.
Right. That's really going to bring in the 80s right there.
Yep. I remember voting on that in elementary school. We had a voting booth, and so we went and we pulled the lever for
practicing for your future patriotic duty.
That's right. All right, 81.
Awesome. 1981. President Reagan is inaugurated on January the 20th. Hostages from Iran were released after 444 days in captivity. A lot of theories and just all that CIA spook stuff surrounding that. That's another fascinating topic,
right?
Too.
Which is it's kind of weird. It's like, oh, we have a new president. We should release these hostages.
Maybe
did they
should.
know something that the rest of us didn't?
I don't know. Could it have been the new vice president was the former director of the CIA?
Could have been.
There's lots of fun stuff.
Lots of stuff going on there.
February the 12th, Rush releases Moving Pictures, songs Limelight and Tom Sawyer.
Oh, man, I hear like Tom Sawyer start today, and I'm just like,
That's
turn it up.
another good one. Oh, this next one's a big one. I totally remember that too. March 30th, the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan while walking to his limo.
Yeah. Yeah, I found pictures of that, so of course they'll go.
Put those
Yep.
up. Just the one thing that always stood out to me about that, and I don't know his name, but every time I saw that little video news clip as a kid, the Secret Service agent that turns around and just squares up right in front of him and takes a bullet, I think somewhere right around the pelvis and belly.
I think, I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong eventually, but I think his name was Brady, because I think the Brady handgun bill comes in much later, and I think he had something to do with that.
That's probably one of the most
I think I could be off.
amazing pieces of news footage.
Well, I mean, you figure like
from a
that's
kid.
their job, but like, do they?
Yeah.
I wonder, and I don't know any Secret Service agents, but you train for that, and you know that that's one of your responsibilities. But do they think like, it's probably not going to happen. I'm probably not going to have to jump in the way of a bullet.
I've met one. After he retired,
I
a
mean,
Secret Service agent.
when the president came to speak at our school,
Mm-hmm.
President Obama in 2012.
Get to meet a couple.
Oh, I met a couple because I was the only one that had a key to a storage closet. I was the only one in the building that had a key to the closet.
Oh, okay.
Talk about teaching your class and having two like 6'3" Secret Service agents with the long black trench coat. I mean, fit the part.
Yeah.
Just not knock. They just walked into my classroom with an administrator. Mr. Burr, we need to see you outside. Of course, the kids are looking at me like, dude, Secret Service is after you. I was like, whoa. They say,
Like,
well,
what?
you need to come with us. And then the assistant principal goes, they need you to open your storage closet. I was like, oh, gosh. Okay.
I'm the opposite. I would immediately go, it's about time. I knew they needed me. And I'm like, we just two different worlds we're in, man. Because I'd have been like, I'm ready. What do you need? They're like, we need keys.
I'm
like,
in.
That's it. That's it.
I'm ready. I've been training my whole life for
gear
this.
up. I need to gear up for that. Come on. So the Secret Service agent I met, I took a class from him, and he taught deception and interviewing tactics.
And
and
for your HR stuff?
yeah, I was the only HR guy in the class of police officers. Somehow I had stumbled upon this.
They thought you were posing for something else.
So and honestly, I can't remember how I came across it, but I found the information through somebody had put me in contact with him. And, it was like, well, you do investigations. You could totally come to this, right? So I show up, and I'm legit the only person in the room who's not a cop. So, and this training was phenomenal, dude. I mean, he had all these historical criminal cases that we all, you could say any one of them and we'd all know who they were.
Right.
And we just walked through them one by one of like all the different techniques that were used and how you could tell if someone's being deceptive, and it was cool. But to go back to just the character of like a Secret Service agent,
Right.
he lived up to every image of an agent that I had. And he had not been an agent. He had been a former presidential detail Secret Service agent. So like he had been that. And it had probably been 15 years since he had served, and he was still that person. I mean, just dude, amazing. But yeah, but that's just something that sticks in my head as a kid. I don't even know who's talking right now. Is it my turn?
Yeah,
We're excited about that, and it's like, yeah, I do remember that. That was March 30th.
yeah, we're in 81. I think we're going to end at 81 because time.
So.
I told you, like, it's going to.
We made it to 1980.
We did, yeah.
So finishing up 1981, this is actually a quite busy year. The 80s do get busy.
Yeah, April 12th, yeah.
April 12th, the first launch of the Space Shuttle program. This is Columbia, the first reusable spacecraft to fly into orbit and return to Earth safely.
And that was a huge deal.
I
remember watching shuttle launches in elementary school just going, that is so cool. It's a huge airplane.
And it just flies back.
And it just comes back.
And it glides. I was fascinated when I found out that when it comes back, it was just a big glider.
Yeah.
It did pass through Nashville a couple of times, where the piggyback, when it was being taken back to wherever it needed to go back to. I think they did kind of national tours sometimes, kind of flew it around. But yeah, that was awesome. And I do remember that being on TV and just how cool it was. I mean, it looked awesome. But that was in, I don't even know where I'm at. That was in April the 12th, July 29th. The 80s are going to take us a long time.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, I read this and I'm like,
this might be 5 or 6 episodes.
July 29th, the Reagan tax cuts approved by Senate and House cut taxes by over $750 billion over the next 5 years.
That's insane amount of money.
Crazy.
But Reagan learned this, and I teach economics. So Reagan learned that it's called the Laffer curve. Mm-hmm. So if you want to look up the Laffer curve, I may even put a Laffer curve in here just so you see. A Laffer curve is essentially, it's kind of looks like a bell curve. But Reagan figured out if you lower taxes, you'll actually increase tax revenue, which sounds backwards. But the whole thing is, the theory behind this is, people are like, oh, that didn't really happen. Okay, look it up yourself. But if you lower taxes, people are more willing to work. I mean, think about it. If your tax rate was 90%, how motivated are you going to work like a dog to bring home 10%? You're not. So you're probably not going to.
I think sometimes some of the most sensible things to do don't necessarily make a lot of sense.
Right.
But that's why you rely on people who study this stuff, present it.
So the whole thing, this guy showed it to Reagan on a napkin, and he learned this whole thing because in the film industry, he learned that if you make 5 films, you actually made less money because of taxes than if you made 4 films, because you jumped up into the next tax bracket and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, he learned that himself back when he was an actor and put it into practice, and there you go.
Brought it to the nation. That's awesome. That's a crazy number. $750 billion.
It's crazy now.
Yeah.
Right.
August 1st. Huge day for Gen X right here.
Yeah, it is.
Music television was launched. MTV, the first video played on August the 1st, and the video was Video Killed the Radio Star. That's
actually awesome. Listed the top 10, but I took a picture of them so that I wouldn't forget them.
You going to put that up here?
I'll just probably type out a list and put the first 10 videos played on them.
Okay.
And I think one of them was a Styx video.
Ah, okay.
And, which I like Styx. And I think one of them was a Cars video.
Makes a lot of sense. If you go back the last couple of years
right.
we've talked about, it makes total sense. August the 12th, IBM releases the first personal computer at a price of $1,565, which is $5,386 in today's dollars.
I adjusted that for inflation.
That's good, because I knew they were expensive, and when I saw 1565, I was thinking in 1981 it wasn't as much as what I thought, but then when you adjust, it's about $5,000. That makes total sense.
$5,000 for the first personal computer in today's dollars. So imagine going right now and spending $5,000 on the most basic technology. Now, it was advanced for the time, but I mean, think about what it does.
Oh. This is 81, so I mean,
it's the green screen,
Oregon Trail.
Not even Oregon Trail. Like this is just straight
come from
like
this
computing. Yes, eventually.
I remember, the first few people who had the dot matrix printers, that were kind of crazy. But
my dad had one. My parents actually gave my kids dot matrix paper because they're like, we don't know what we're going to do with this. Here, you can color on this. So like my daughter just draws all the time, and she's always tearing off the little
tabs
The
on the
little
side.
tabs on the side,
Those
yeah.
were the vein of my existence
I
for a
hated
long
those.
time. When they would come off track or tear something up.
Oh yeah, or wouldn't line up on the teeth just
Oh,
right, and it
man.
just fed it sideways, and like, oh,
Evil. September 21st of 1981, Sandra Day O'Connor is chosen as the first female Supreme Court justice
that was a big deal.
in U.S. history. I
Have a-
remember
to
that.
have a woman
Yeah.
on the Supreme Court. You know,
It's
which-
amazing to
that it
really
took
look
that
at
long.
where we started back in 65
Yeah.
with the Civil Rights Act. I mean, we really are the first generation to live our whole lives where some of these real fundamental things now that people just say
That
this is
should
the,
have
this is
just
the
been.
norm. Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy to think that it's not been that long. I mean,
Right.
It's our lifetime.
right?
October 26th.
Rounding out 81, we're going to finish with this.
The Jay Gills Band releases.
Giles, come
the
on,
Jay Jay Giles Band releases album Freeze Frame. Songs Freeze Frame and Centerfold. Centerfold was probably
I
one
remember-
of my favorite songs.
Yeah,
for-
the video of Centerfold at the end when he's running and he's whistling the last part of Centerfold, and the cheerleaders are doing cartwheels behind him as he like runs by. Just that whole video, because MTV was new.
It was. That video gave me feelings in 1981. Man, it's like, can't believe this is on daytime TV.
Right. It's like, I'm glad my parents are in the other room.
It's
Because we were
awesome.
unsupervised.
Unsupervised, but with guidelines.
That's right.
That's
And since
okay.
MTV was new, we didn't have any guidelines on MTV at the time, but I got some later.
Same.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to stop there for today.
We're going to stop
right?
there, yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap up this episode, what about we go to the Book of Answers?
Book of Answers.
Is it your turn to open the book? So do I have to come up with a question?
No, I think.
You have a question?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I got a question.
All right. You ask the question, and then I shall
All right.
find the answer.
Would it be better if MTV went back to playing music videos?
Oh. Do they play any music videos
No.
anymore? Okay, I didn't think so. It would be inadvisable.
Inadvisable?
Inadvisable.
Huh. Interesting.
Is that because attention spans not
Maybe.
being around anymore?
Maybe.
Or is it because pop-up video is actually much better?
I mean, you can just type in what video you want to watch.
I liked pop-up video. I know that's VH1.
Yeah.
But I was a fan because it's like, oh, it's part.
Oh, you were talking about pop-up video. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's
I do
where
now.
you're
Yes,
like,
yes.
During the making of this video, everybody got wasted, and it took 17 days to
Right.
clean up the pool.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I liked that. Okay, so it would be inadvisable for MTV to go back
All right.
to playing.
Well,
just music
I'm
videos.
assuming, because I hear people calling for it all the time. I see on social media, I wish MTV played videos again. And you would think that there's an audience for that. Even if they went back to playing videos from the 80s, I think people would watch that.
I
But-
agree. Do you ever? I know I go onto YouTube and sometimes
I go onto YouTube, yeah.
I watch videos
Right.
because I
do.
think they're cool.
But I bet, I would assume, I know what happens when you assume, but I would assume that MTV has done some research on, hey, would this be economically advantageous for us to play videos? And I guess the answer is no. They keep doing their reality show
Right.
stuff. But so that was my question.
All right. Well,
But,
and we got our
yeah.
answer.
We got our answer. For those of you who don't know, the Book of Answers is just answers. There are no questions. It's just a couple hundred pages of
Leaves it up to us to come up with the
yeah.
questions.
And sometimes the answers don't make sense, but this time they did.
That one made really
That one's
made
pretty
really good sense.
pretty
I
self-explanatory.
think so. So we're gonna pick up next episode.
Next episode with 82.
1982.
Yeah.
We're getting into the meat of the 80s at this point. So.
And I had to contain. Oh, I want to put this album in and this album, but because it would just gone. But I think I said something about this the other episodes ago,
Yeah.
one or two. but I think that we should do an all music.
I hear another series coming.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
music that made us.
The music. Oh, I like the music that made us. That's probably been used before.
I'm like, oh, now.
We will look. If that hasn't been used, we'll change it a little bit.
We'll use different words, but
Right.
I do feel like that.
The music that shaped us. You know, we'll come up
Pretty
with
sure
something.
that's been used too.
I don't know.
We'll just, you know, the making of the musical making of a generation. I feel like that's fresh and new.
The musical making of a generation. All right,
Yeah.
one of those.
We'll work on
one of those will work. But that'll be another series, and not necessarily right after this one. We may get back into some of our other stories and then jump into the music one. But I think we need to have an all music one.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Appreciate you watching.
We're gonna like, share,
subscribe, all that kind of stuff.
There.
But really share, because with these timeline episodes, it's not, like we said, just the Chris and Dave show.
Yeah.
So we're trying to appeal to a broader audience, you know, pull in the Gen Xers, and there's some big movements with Gen X right now. You know, have you seen the Gen X takeover? There's 4 social media influencers that have all banded together, and they've done different live events in different cities, and they're doing one in Las Vegas coming up. And now I see that they've got a cruise going on.
Okay.
It's called Gen X Takeover. Gen X Takeover. I don't have anything to do with them, but there's 4 influencers that are.
Depending on what group of Gen X you get, that could be very costly.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Apologies.
Oh, cell phone technology in the 80s.
That's awesome.
All right.
All right,
Appreciate
guys.
y'all watching.
Thank you.
See y'all next time.